Do you want to introduce it, or should I introduce it? Or should this be the introduction?
I mean, this could be the introduction.
That'd be fun.
Hey everyone, good morning from the 226.
Or whatever time of day you happen to be listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I suppose.
Various times of day.
This is episode 2. Today we're going to be talking about education.
Ah, yes.
Crazy huge topic, but being both education majors, I think we both have a lot to talk about.
Oh, definitely. I think we'll cover a good at least 40 minutes in this episode as well.
At least I'll try not to have to rush to class this time.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. But yeah, education. Should we just dive right in?
I think we should.
All right. What do you got?
Let's see. What do I want to start with? Let's start with what teachers stick out in your mind.
Oh, wow. Because I think everyone has those teachers that when they look back at their history, their education, they can, yep, this one. They have a handful that they can look back to, and either it was a really good experience, it could be a really bad experience, but they've got ones that stand out in their mind. So,
Which ones stick out in your mind?
Oh my! I think one that really stuck out for me was a grade school principal.
Okay.
Mr. Herring. I think grade school was how should I phrase this? I think in grade school the ability to manage a classroom is a skill that you require more when you're teaching that education level, the elementary level. When you're in high school, you still need to have classroom management techniques, of course, but it's not as much of what's on the forefront of your mind. But he taught me, it was like a catechism class, and he also subbed every once in a while.
Okay.
So all I remember is that I really respected him as a teacher. The way he conducted himself in the classroom just commanded that respect. Another teacher that I remember was actually a coach that I had at Beloit College.
Oh, okay.
He was my track coach, and I really loved his idea that not only was he teaching you how to be an athlete, he was teaching you how to be a coach as well. Which kind of goes into one of my points that we'll talk about later. But and then the other teacher that really stands out in my mind was a teacher and a coach to me, and that was Dr. Paustian. Now, definitely changed the way that I saw the world in a lot of very good ways. And I believe you're in a class with him right now. Right?
Yeah, that's a class I was late to last week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree. He's quickly turning into one of those teachers for me.
Definitely. What about you? What other teachers that stand out?
Yeah, so back in high school, my calculus teacher, he had this way of teaching that made like super hard calculus for seniors in high school really easy. He was really great at explaining concepts and saying, this is how you do it. If you have a problem, here's the workaround. And then creating problem-solving students, as opposed to just, this is the process, you do this all the time.
Exactly.
So he had us fully understanding content at just this crazy fast pace, which was incredible. The first day of class I remember having with him, he essentially, or like the teacher before him, the math teacher before him, not that great. Didn't learn much in the class. And in about 5 minutes, he taught us everything that we had ever learned wrong and got us to master it in those 5 minutes. So we all had these crazy questions like, why, or how do we do this? How do we do this? Why can't we do this? And he cleared them all up, just. Whereas the other teacher took a year and never fully understood it.
That's awesome. I wish I was there for those 5 minutes, because that would probably give me a few ideas about what I could do in a classroom.
It was absolutely incredible. Just the way he communicated the content was...
Definitely.
Oh man, it was powerful. Another one for me was actually my 5th grade teacher back in grade school. She was the most black and white teacher I've ever had. Going into 5th grade, it was kind of like a joke, like, okay, you gotta step up. You can't be goofing off and everything. And She was actually, that grade was the only grade I ever got detention. And like she just knew how to do discipline really well.
Do you remember what you did?
Yeah, I cheated on a math assignment. Oh, yeah. It wasn't like, it was completely my fault.
Definitely.
But no, you just learned a lot from her about school, but also just how to be a person, you know. Because fifth grade, I think, is this huge turning point in school. Like K through 4, you're just kind of,
definitely, yeah.
But then fifth grade hits, and you're like, okay, let's start.
Yeah,
really
we
focusing.
had in my elementary school, the one that I went to, I think there was one year I was in 4th grade, and that was kind of the lower level. You were in the basement of the building, but once you got to 5th grade, you're in the upper floor now. So not only was it a mental change, but it was all, like, physically you were on another level.
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of like it's like a joke, but it's no. But mentally, what that does, psychologically, as a student, you're like, oh, I'm an upper grader now.
Yep.
And so you were expected to conduct yourself that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big transition point in the lower grades.
Yeah. Then, like, so with this question, which teachers stick out in your minds, and then why do they stick out? You know?
Yeah, and that's something that I think
different.
I've been trying to figure out for years. How do teachers command that kind of respect at whatever grade level they might be at?
Yeah. How do you learn to teach your kids in a super fast, efficient way that's memorable? And
it's not like teaching is like how do I get my kids to like me, kind of like that.
No.
It's not a, students recognize that.
Yeah.
They will eat you alive.
Oh yeah.
It's not a popularity contest, but you can be effective while being humorous or likable or showing that you care. I think those are definitely things that a lot of those teachers do, maybe in different ways.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that your class, in the math class, those first 5 minutes was kind of like, oh, well, he's definitely very concerned about our understanding the way that we are supposed to be learning these things.
Yep.
He definitely knows his stuff, and you respected him for it.
Yep.
A lot of people liked him as a math teacher.
For sure.
Definitely.
I mean, he was hard too. Like, you gotta do everything, but
Yeah. They have high expectations for you.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Fifth grade teacher was the same way.
They make you rise to that level.
Exactly. If you don't have high expectations, students are never going to achieve that, I think.
And not only have those high expectations, but have it displayed or communicated that you think that the students can achieve those things as well.
Yes.
Is definitely something that should be expressed in one way or another. So another point I had kind of related to that, going back to my track coach back in Beloit, is that teaching is the best way to learn.
Ooh,
and I think that I try to use this, and when I was student teaching in the classroom, is if you can explain something to someone, and then how well will they be able to understand it if they're not able to in turn explain it to someone else? So the actual act of explaining whatever content you're trying to teach, whether it's a math problem or something about the body, something about running, so any topic you want. If you only know enough to be able to kind of understand it, you're not going to be able to teach it very well. But if you're going to teach it, you've got to know it backwards and forwards. You've got to be able to stand up there and go off the cuff and explain it in that way. So I try to use that in class. If I taught a lot of math class. That was my major, was mathematics. And I tried to get my students to be able to give them opportunities to teach each other in the classroom, because I thought that was a great way to maybe refresh their memory, maybe to review something we had just learned, to kind of like a comprehension check. I mean, there's tons of different strategies that they teach you for these things, but I think the idea of being able to teach something makes you better at it yourself as well. So
I had the opportunity to be a marching band music director this summer.
Oh, that's right. Vanguard?
Yeah, Lutheran Vanguard of Wisconsin. I was a member of that for 5 years and got asked to be on staff this year. Absolutely loved it. marching band is a huge passion of mine, actually. Goes with the whole music thing. And so getting to work with all those kids was an absolute blast. And throughout the entire season, I was constantly, like, the way I got into rehearsals, I mean, these are long rehearsals. So you give the kids breaks, but then after you have a break, before you get back in, and be like, okay, what did we just do? Tell your neighbor. Explain this. Which measure are we accenting on the and of to? And like super specific things. Because they have to have all that memorized, and you need complete mastery from every single person to absolutely achieve the highest level.
Yeah.
And it's just the same in a classroom.
Yeah. Getting them to repeat what just happened not only gets them to reflect on what just happened, but also gives them like, oh, a repetition of whatever they learned.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that that teaching is the best way to learn something completely. Yeah. Granted, that doesn't take away from being a student.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot to be said for how students should act in a classroom. Someone who's truly wants to learn how do they conduct themselves. They're not at a disadvantage by not being a teacher. But I do think that being teacher is a great way to enhance your knowledge on whatever topic that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I think auto mechanics. Okay. Follow me on this. So I know nothing about cars. I know when my car has a weird noise, something's wrong with it, and that's where I'm at. And my car has a weird noise right now.
Oh, okay. See, I love cars, and I wish that you could. What's the noise sound like?
It's just a bad braking noise. I'm gonna need new brakes, I think.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, so the auto mechanic that works on your car and then comes and explains it to me in full detail at my level. Like, I know he knows his stuff, and he just taught me something about the car, essentially, by explaining, like, this was the problem, this is what we did. You're gonna have to pay this much, but, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's a super good skill for them to have. And then you obviously know, like, oh, this guy's good at his job.
He commands your respect.
Yeah.
Right then and there.
Yeah, because he knows his stuff, and he's just respectful of you, too, Like, just tell me the clear-cut facts. And
yeah, because you have the opposite of that is a mechanic who comes in and is like, yeah, you need a new conductor valve, and you gotta get some brake disc replacement. Now, I don't know why I use that voice, but it's just the idea I have of a mechanic in my brain.
Yeah. I think the big difference between like that guy and then the person who explains it to is like you generally feel like you're not getting ripped off either.
Yeah.
Like if they're up front with you and just explain everything in full detail, I will gladly pay whatever they want me to.
One person is dumping information on you, and one person is empathizing with you, putting themselves in your shoes, and actually making a connection there.
Yeah.
That's what I think our brains are designed to do, is to connect with people in that way.
Yeah.
So when you kind of push that off to the side for the sake of just pouring information into someone as a teacher, that's not how it should work. I don't think.
No.
I can't just there you go. I can't just upload information into your brain.
Yeah.
I can't just have you put your books on your heads and sleep in osmosis overnight. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You actually have to experience. Teacher has to be a facilitator, not a facilitator.
Yeah, I think that teacher empathy thing, I think that's why, in my mind, a lot of the best teachers were once students who struggled a lot, because they've been through all those struggles, and they can help those kids so much better than anything else. So like I teach some trumpet lessons every week. I've been playing trumpet since 5th grade. And
Same.
But like I picked it up fairly quickly, practiced a ton that first year, which provided a great base for learning, and then I excelled. Like, I'm not trying to brag, but like I got good. I did honors bands and stuff, and
you just took to it naturally.
Yeah. So I never really had any huge struggles. So I've noticed that in teaching, like if someone is having struggles, I need to really think about, okay, this is what this other person had to do. And it's not this first-person experience anymore.
Yeah.
Which would be a more powerful way of teaching, I think.
Yeah. Somewhere where you said, I went through the exact same thing that you did.
Yeah.
Whereas someone like you who went through the trumpet ranks pretty quickly, like it just came naturally to you, wouldn't quite have that perspective on things. So you kind of have to imagine or experience that just by observing your students. And it's a very tricky thing to do, but I think that in itself is a way of, going through a difficult time as a teacher, and will perhaps make you a better teacher in the future. So
I completely agree.
I hope so. You got another point there?
Yeah. Let's talk about, let's talk about Sir Ken Robinson.
Sir Ken Robinson.
Okay, so if you don't know, Sir Ken Robinson gave this amazing TED Talk, 2 TED Talks, I think, about education reform, but mainly our schools killing creativity. Our schools killing creativity. And he has some phenomenal ideas. His main thesis is that right now, across the world, schools are just like factories, and they're taking in students, they're educating them, and they're kicking them out, and they're creating identical products when the students graduate. And that's not what the world needs in any way. And to begin with, every student when they come in is completely different.
Exactly.
So why should we expect the same from every student? Sure, we need high expectations, but maybe those expectations are different. And do we educate students on how to be problem solvers and creative and go out into the world and understand there's more than one way to do everything? Or do we just kick them out and say, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and that's the only thing they know? Yeah.
That's all you need to know, because that's all that's going to be on the standardized test.
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole standardized test thing, like, we could talk for hours about that.
Oh, for sure.
But I read one of his books, what's it called? Is it called Creative Schools? You have it right now.
I believe so. I believe it's in my backpack, actually. It's something like that.
Yeah.
I can look it up right now as you...
So this book essentially expands on the TED Talk I just talked about, and goes in depth, gives great examples of schools that are doing wonderful things across the world. So right now, I don't know, would you say there's overall consensus that education is in this weird spot right now? Like,
in the United States?
In the United States,
definitely.
for sure.
That we always compare ourselves to all the other nations as, like, where do we stand in math? Like, oh no, we're bad at math. What are we going to do? Like, okay, well, let's pass some law, because that'll change how things work. Not that laws shouldn't have they do have a place in education, but what I think teachers are what this country needs.
Yeah.
Teachers who are completely able to empathize with their students.
Yeah.
Who can be put in situations where they're able to put their full self forward.
Yeah.
I had a student teaching experience in a different classroom than I was talking about before, where I had, I think, 160 different kids that I saw in a day. And I was only there for 5 weeks. 160 kids, that's more... I was barely learning all of their names by the end, like by halfway through. Yeah. And I think I kind of got it, but you can't make a personal connection with 150 students. You can't relate to all of those people, especially in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
So it makes it really difficult to teach them all when you just have this mass of students, and then teach them, and then they go to another class, and you have another bulk of students, and you teach them, and they go to another class. Yeah. It's just the education system in our country, I think, does need a little bit of an overhaul, or at least a change of mindset from teachers and staff around the country. Yeah. So,
and that's what this book is all about. The book's official title: Creative Schools: The Grassroots Revolution That's Transforming Education. So the entire book is essentially a call to action for all teachers. It really ends with that and says, like, hey, go make a difference, go change something, be creative in how you teach, how you run your school, principles. Hey, let's start from the top and really change everything. Because the countries that are exceeding right now, they're not focusing on standardized tests. They're focusing on student to teacher empathy, teacher to student empathy. They're focusing on how can we best teach every individual student in a unique way.
Yeah.
How do we get students to succeed without overbearing on them and just saying you need to pass this test? And so it's all these different ways of going about and achieving really education greatness, essentially. But different ways of doing it. Like Finland, their education drastically different than America's. They have high expectations, but sometimes they don't even have like actual grades in the classroom, or it's much less formal than education setting in America right now. Like,
I've always wondered that, like, why do we use the A through F scale?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Like, who's saying that that's the way that we should be grading someone? Who says that that's the ideal way to assess a student's performance?
Yeah.
Or who's to say that, you know, rows in classrooms is an optimal way to learn? How much of that came from necessity in a time of education where that might have been something good, but now in our day and age, something different might be more beneficial?
Yeah.
Even in colleges or high schools where teachers are called maybe like by their last name, how much more of a connection can you make if you use someone's first name?
Yep.
Who's to say that that's not the kind of connection you want in the classroom? Granted, there should be some, like, you do relinquish some of your position, but I would rather, as a teacher, be on the same level as my students. I would rather be right next to them. Let's attack this material together.
Yeah.
And how much more can I do that if they have that kind of relationship with me? I don't know.
I actually gave a little lesson in one of my education courses. It was a Phi-Ed class. And so, like, the way you set up, there's this whole way about doing classroom management. So it's like, okay, you have the students sit in a little like puddle in front of you, and then you stand and talk to them. And I just didn't like looking down on my students.
Yeah.
So like I got down on their level, just kind of like bent down and like talked to them. And then the prof actually told me, like, don't do that. Like, you should be kind of commanding authority by standing while they're sitting. And in my mind, I'm just, no, I want to be with them. I don't want to, I can be authoritative, but at their level.
Yeah.
You know, and
they're
I can
not
still
going
demand
to
that.
disrespect you for getting down. And I think good doctors do that too.
Yeah.
Or nurses. You'll see it when you're in your little room at the clinic. If I haven't been there in years, but I kind of noticed when I was someone pointed it out to me. Maybe it was my father. But when I was in the room, the only time that he was standing taller than me was when he first came in the room, when I was sitting down, and then maybe if he was administering some like test or like measuring my heart rate. Whenever we were talking, and it was just like, here's what's happening, here's your height, here's this. The only time he was taller than me was those times. He was always sitting when I was sitting, and if anything, I was standing up and he was sitting. So he was always, he made sure that distance was, and it makes you more comfortable, I think.
Yeah, it's totally subconscious too. Like, you don't think about while it's happening.
It's just this unwritten kind of feeling, this gut feeling that you get as you're communicating with someone. If someone's standing looking down at you, it's a very vulnerable position for the person who's being looked down on. And not that vulnerability is to be avoided per se, but in a teaching situation, that's not what you're going for. Is you're not trying to give that mood to your students. So
maybe that goes back to the whole thing of like, you're not trying to be friendly with the students.
Yes.
But if you do it right, you're going to be friends with your students. So you lay down black and white, hey, this is what I expect. Don't do this, do this. We'll get along fine. Yeah. And then those students are going to end up falling in love with you just by doing that.
Yeah, I don't want my students to shy away from coming up to me with problems that they have outside of my class content. You know, if someone's having a rough day at home, And we're like, I want to be able to talk to them about that, because that is, if that's not right at home, how can I teach them? That's what's going to be on their mind all day. So you have to be available for them and do that. And that's where I think a lot of the problem in America comes from, is teachers aren't in a position where they're able to do that. They have too many kids in their classrooms. You might have a few teachers who don't care, but I think most teachers, I think a lot of them still have a little bit of that spark where they're like, I want to teach people, I want to help other people. I don't think that's the major problem. But then how do you, as a school district or a principal, facilitate that in all of your teachers? It's like, I want to put you in the place where you can be able to be this, and this for your students, because that's what's going to make them learn.
I think every single school needs a why behind their doing. Because if teachers are just teaching to get better grade scores so they can get a promotion or more money, I think that's absolutely terrible.
And that's where standardized testing might be a little bit too far. If you're giving schools that have better scores more money,
I think that's completely flipped. Like the schools that are getting lower scores, they need
they probably
more support,
need more access to resources or more teachers. And I don't think that an arbitrary score on a test that kind of spits out children like a factory is something that you should be assessed on as a school. But that could be a topic for an entire episode, I think.
My goodness, I mean, like, there's books written on it. Like,
definitely. I agree. Kind of related to that, there, as we said before, we have good teachers and bad teachers. And the good teachers are ones that you might remember because they did something unique in the classroom. They taught you in a different way, or they made it very applicable to you. The bad teachers do the opposite of that. They don't let it apply to you. It's kind of my way or the highway, as they said to us in classes. And sometimes, and I think oftentimes, you can learn just as much from those teachers about how to teach, at least, as the ones that taught you extremely well.
I hate that kind of learning, but
I do not appreciate it myself, but I think it's a necessity, and it's a good skill to have. Because you're going to go through teachers that you're not, maybe, that you don't like as much. And you're going to have teachers that you love. And both of those you have to be able to get something out of. If you're trying to get the most out of your educational experience, having a teacher that is that does something completely the wrong way, you can remember that and use that and change into, what would I do differently here? How could I, as a teacher, make this situation better? And you can learn from that as well. Maybe not the preferred way, but there's definitely something to be said about taking advantage of making the most out of every opportunity in the classroom.
Definitely. No, as you're saying that, like, I'm just thinking of these teachers in my mind. So obviously music plays a large part in my life. Throughout my last 2 years of grade school and 4 years of high school, my band program went through 3 band directors.
Oh, wow.
So that's 6 years, 3 different band directors I had, which that is not the way to build a program at all, because you need consistency. And I remember going through just a lot of them, and my parents being like, okay, if you want to be a band director, which is what I'm studying, look at this is what not to do, learn from this. And it was the hardest thing for me to comprehend at the time. Because all I wanted was that amazing person in front of the band, giving these just incredible rehearsals and everything.
And you come out refreshed every time. You're ready to, like, take on the world after playing a band piece.
I know, right?
Or 4th hour. Like, that's what you want out of every classroom as a student, or at least to not feel like, wow, that was horrible. But taking those moments and maybe teaching your students too. I hope maybe if I ever find myself in front of a classroom, I think I might be open with them about that and be like, there might be days where, I'm standing up here in front of you and we're learning It might be calculus, it might be geometry, number theory, anything like that. It might not be working out. Like there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. You might be frustrated already. There could be a lot of different things, and those are learning opportunities at their prime. If you're understanding everything completely, what are you learning? If you're moving through smoothly, we talked about this last episode. Leonid Vygotsky's zone of proximal development.
There you go.
You want to push your students to a place where you can assist them through the material, and that's basically the only way that they can get through it is with that assistance, because they're pushed into that. It's like a slightly uncomfortable, like I can't do this on my own, and you want to be there for them. So that's kind of a place where you want to have as a teacher. You can say, well, okay, you might have failed that, but let's try it again, and we'll get it right.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll fail again, and then we'll try again, and we'll just always get back up, and I'll always be there for you in that time. So learning from bad teachers, learning from good teachers, I think both present you basically put yourself in a situation where every classroom, every learning experience is advantageous, not only for you as a student, but also if you're learning how to teach, which I think everyone who, regardless of what your passions are in life, music, photography, car racing, video, music, I mean especially creative things, you kind of want to be able to share that with others, and teaching them about what you do is very, very much in line with what they actually do. So I mean, have you ever taught anyone how to use a camera?
Yeah, multiple times.
And you're teaching people how to play trumpet.
Yeah,
I've done a few of the same myself. Like whatever. Like here's something about music in production. That, here, try it this way. Maybe this will open your eyes to something. Being able to teach that makes you not only understand it better yourself, because you've had to explain it in a way that's understandable, but also an asset to whatever community of artists you have around you, or whoever you have in your little niche.
Yeah, totally.
You got another point?
Yeah. Let's talk about love in the classroom. Okay. So I wrote this paper last year for a class. What was it called? Doesn't matter. But I wrote that if I ever find myself in front of a classroom, I will do everything from a standpoint of love for the students. Because I think any and everything that a teacher does can branch out from that.
Yeah.
So say like discipline, student does something, how do you handle that? You handle it from a point of love, like, hey, we're gonna get through this together, but what you did was wrong and we need to talk about that. And there's going to be consequences. Or students excel, and how do you celebrate with them?
Exactly.
It's that whole empathy thing, and you put yourself with them and you say, hey, that's a big deal. Way to pass that timed math test that you've been working on for a month, or something like that. Or just teaching from a standpoint of love then. Like, you want the kids to achieve the greatest thing in the world. Like, the whole reason I want to be a band director is so students can have the same opportunities I had. Because I had these world-renowned conductors in front of me and composers in front of me at some points, and I got to go to all these places and just be in these amazing opportunities. I want to give everyone that same thing. So if you love your students, honestly, it's like a parent with their kids, like,
or a friend or whatever.
You're gonna do the most you possibly want. You're going to do the most you possibly can, because you want them to succeed and achieve everything they ever could.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, would you say that's your philosophy of education then?
Yeah, and that's what the paper was titled. It was the philosophy of education paper.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's a great philosophy to have, because literally everything you do in the classroom can flow through that little phrase. Like, I will do everything from the standpoint of loving my students, whether it be discipline or encouragement or excitement or just a regular day in the classroom.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when the students realize that, or if you come out and say like, hey, I want to love you guys, like work with me and let's just have fun. I think that classroom will be far more successful than a classroom that doesn't have that love.
Yeah, that's the kind of love that's always self-sacrificing for the sake of that person, and which makes that's empathy, right?
Yeah.
That's putting yourself in their shoes. That's being what they need at that time.
Yeah.
So there's just, I mean, you really can't go wrong with that. I hope you did well in that paper, because I think that at least the idea is pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
I think I did pretty well. Got like a 96 maybe. I don't know.
I see.
No. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Oh, the teacher that loves their students that much, like, that's gonna make the job so much harder. A lot more work, no downtime, working out weekends. But I mean,
that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's gonna be so much more rewarding.
There's nothing like seeing a student's eyes light up when you really connect with them.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
There's even if it's just like a little minor triumph. You have a student who really struggles with something, and I think I can share this. I had a student who was maybe not the best at math, and maybe that's a bit of an understatement. So, but he was the best artist I've ever seen for a 5th grader. Everyone else is kind of like they're all right at this, they're all right at that, and everyone has their own little struggles. But he was when it came to class work, it came really difficult to him. It was just a struggle. It was kind of slow. But when it came to art, the art teacher had them draw instruments. I remember one day, and so I went down to pick up the classroom and walk them back to our class on the other side of the school. And I'm looking at all of their pictures just to see, like, hey, how was your art class? How did that go? And most people just drew something that they knew, right? Oh, here's a flute, which is basically a line with some dots on it. It looks like ants on a log. It's not that, right? Okay. This kid drew, like, a French horn, tuba, piccolo, harp, hybrid, I don't even know. Like, I probably could have stared at this for days and like asked, like, how do you think you would do this? And he'd probably be able to be like, oh well, we just do this. He just, like, he had this artistic mind. He could draw almost like better than I could probably, and there's a ton of creativity there. And I made it my goal. This was early when I was there, and I think I was only in that classroom once a week, so I had the whole semester. It was like the second week I saw this picture and I was like, there's something there. I really want to make this. I really want to tap into that in a math class somehow. And I can't remember exactly what it was. I think there was some like diagram he drew or something, and I always try to go back to that subtly, like, what can you draw it? And like, what is pi? How do you understand pi? Well, can you draw me a circle? And like, how would it look if you unwound that circle? And just various things like that. And there's one time where I think towards the end of the class, I was able to say, like, like, I understand a lot of this math stuff probably doesn't come very easily. And he's like, yeah, probably. He was very quiet, and so getting even that out of him was a little bit surprising to me. But I was able to be like, you have the best creative drawing mind that I have really ever seen, especially for a 5th grader. And there's value in that. Don't take that for granted, and never stop drawing. And like, he was just like, he was quietly sitting there, but you could see his eyes lit up. Like, he was like, it wasn't like a happiness or like a beaming little like smile. It was just like, I was able to establish that I valued him for what he was good at. And that didn't subtract anything away from the things that he struggled with, and I was still there. So I think that kind of, like, I want to have that connection with every student that I have, but and having 150 kids makes it kind of difficult. So, but I definitely agree. That's a great philosophy to have as a teacher.
I had this my clinical experience. So once a week going to public school, was in a 3rd grade classroom. I'm not a young kid person. So 3rd grade was interesting for me, but there was this day where, so like in every classroom you have the kids who usually don't get in trouble, the kids who do get in trouble. And there was one kid who he did something at recess. Kids were upset. came in. Mr. Whitty, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, stop tattling. Just let me talk to this kid. And he's just over in the corner crying. Like, he knows he messed up and everything. And so, like, I just take him out of the classroom and, like, just go talk, because there's another teacher in the class, and the class can continue. And we just talk about everything in life. And being in a classroom once a week with these kids, like, it's really hard to get to know them.
Yeah.
But when we just talked about him, found out more about his family life, and, like, he's going through these issues at home, and he's in 3rd grade. The kid's young. Like,
yeah.
Even, like, this is the point where they consciously start to realize, oh, things aren't right.
Yeah.
And then they focus on, I did wrong. I did this bad.
Yeah,
I'm not good at this.
They blame themselves for that home situation.
Exactly. And then that just comes out at school. It's a natural thing. It sucks.
Yeah.
And, like, so just talking with him and working through everything, and then him realizing that, hey, I want to work with you, and I want you to succeed.
And I wonder how many teachers attempted that kind of strategy. Like, what's life like? Like, when you come to school, like, what are you feeling? Like, that kind of. How many teachers tried to do that for him? Yeah. And probably the ones that do are the ones that he really wants to work with and he really looks up to.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, just having that connection then for the rest of the year was so vital. Because he knew, like, when I worked with him, it wasn't from hey, you need to do better.
Yeah.
But I know where you are. Let's work together. Let's get through this.
Yeah, and we can both get better together.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah.
I have a topic here, which is actually sort of my philosophy of education. Everyone has a different one, and I think there's a lot of value in yours. Mine is called the web of interconnectivity, and I think it's just a way to visualize how learning takes place. So a lot of teachers have this idea, like, oh, I just, read, comprehend, understand. That's a simple, like, it's almost like they think of students as like a bank. And the teacher has a lot of money, and I'm going to deposit some of that into each individual bank account. I don't think that's how learning works.
No, I would agree.
I think that students pick up on that, and it's like, what if you give me money in the wrong currency? Like, what happens?
Yeah.
No, I think it's more of that when you're a teacher, you're a facilitator. That's what it boils down to. So every piece of knowledge that you have, whether it be like an understanding of what the color red is, or what a kind of like any little piece. Imagine like a fire truck. There are a ton of different parts to it. So you have red, you have wheels, maybe an idea attached to it. So like a truck, ladder, fireman, fire itself. All of these things are important. Yeah. And in your mind, I think all of those are separate ideas. But when you connect them all together, that's when you get this fire truck.
Yep.
That's when you get that thing. So that's how I kind of want to model my teaching. Because that's how I think the brain works, is you have all those separate ideas, and when you bring them all together, then you get this new idea. So when I teach content, I want to be able to say, here's this idea, here's this idea, here's this idea, here's a time when you can use all of those things together right there. That's the new thing that I want. Yeah. And that's sort of my philosophy for how teaching should go. Kind of models at least my understanding or visualization of the way the brain works, and applies that to the content I teach in class.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. I've had teachers do this to me, where they teach you those separate ideas and don't tell you that they're all connected somehow. Oh. And then they present like, hey, here's the big idea. Use all that. And you're like, oh, what?
How did that happen?
Like, just, so like, that's something you use every once in a while, but when the students know, hey, we're building up to something bigger and better, that's so powerful. And it gets them excited about little things like subtracting. Hey, we're going to use this in long division. Oh, yeah. This giant, crazy thing. Yeah. But it's on your way.
I don't know, there might be the little teacher inside me, but when you try to get a kid excited about long division, no one gets excited about long division. But if you can do that as a teacher, there's ways you can do that. Yeah. You have to be excited about it yourself. Yeah. Or at least show that. So I guess that's my philosophy, is that I want to, learning is connecting.
Yeah.
Same with communicating, teaching. All of those things are taking pre-existing, I guess it's more like a constructivist kind of view, where you have pre-existing like building blocks, points in space or understanding or ideas, and you bring those together. That's learning happening.
Yeah, totally.
So that's how I'd want to be as a teacher, regardless of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
we said to get students excited about long division. I think excitement for a subject is so key. Like that same third grade classroom I taught handwriting one day in that classroom. Who gets excited about
John's handwriting is phenomenal. Let's just, maybe sometime you'll see. Look at the signature at the end of the podcast if you're on YouTube.
Well, your signature is cool too.
But my signature is like unreadable. But your handwriting anyway. You taught handwriting.
Yeah, so I taught handwriting. And ironically, like 2 days before I taught handwriting, I had a class where like, hey, you should teach handwriting this way. And it was actually really good. So I got students smiling and laughing at handwriting. And we were like doing these huge motions to do like cursive letters, and like third graders are just learning cursive.
Right.
Then at the end we had like the students were voting like, oh, who could make the A the best, and like, oh, can they beat Mr. Whitty for how the A looks,
I doubt
and everything like that. So it was this really interactive way of handwriting, where I mean, like, this is something where kids who just don't care at all.
Yeah.
It's like, it looks kind of similar. That's good, right?
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
and I mean, handwriting is kind of dying anyway, but getting students excited about all the content, they're going to learn so much more.
Regardless of what level they're at, where they are in school. Like, I mean, I still get excited about, grad classes. Like, I don't know why I was excited for stats class. I don't know.
Like
no, but I was just, I went to class and I was like, I'm ready for this. Like, I want to know, or like, oh, this is like now applying, because stats was something that maybe I didn't learn as well when I was in college.
Yeah.
And now I have a chance to refresh all of that and kind of get a new look on it. But it's actually, I love it this time, because this time it's actually applied to something specific, in this case, research.
Yep.
So how can I use what I know about statistics to actually make deductions about, the way people act, cause and effect relationships in communication and psychology, sociology, all of those different things. They're all, a lot of the research that's out there has the assumption that you can learn things about the world by testing them statistically.
Yeah.
And like, if 90% of the people are doing this way, this time, and you've kind of isolated those variables and made sure nothing else is involved in the interaction, you can say, well, a lot of the time this is happening, so this is something significant we can look at. And they have different confidence intervals and what have you to determine that. But the simple idea that you can let that say something about the world, and that gives value to that connection there is just intriguing to me.
Yeah.
So like, when I go to class later today in statistics, like, I'm going to be excited.
I think the application of any subject is where students can start to shine.
Yeah, and you can apply. That's what I love about math, is that you can apply math to literally everything.
Yes.
If you like horses, I mean,
geometry.
Yeah, there's geometry. There's how do you make the jumps that they go over? How do you make horseshoes? Like, there's math in all of this. How do you measure the hood? Like, I mean, and like, what is the Pythagorean theorem? And a love for horses, like a passion. Like, if I'm a teacher, like, I want to challenge them to make that connection.
Yeah.
To find some way where they can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve a problem that they would actually encounter during something that they're doing with horses, which is a passion of theirs. And so that is like directly applied to them. It could be, I really don't know. And that's the beauty of it, is that when you challenge students to make those connections, they'll rise to the occasion. If it's something that they're passionate about, they will surprise you. They're very gifted. I think everyone, especially when it comes to things that they're really interested in, will just blow you away. As a teacher, you'd be like, I would have never thought of that. Yeah. And here the kids are doing that 50 times in front of you. Yeah. So
let's wrap up. What was something that stuck out to you?
I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was the idea of empathy. It seemed to be kind of a theme from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Just that the teachers that you remember for being good, all were able to empathize with you or connect with you in some way.
Yeah.
Some more than others, some in different ways, but they were all able to say like, hey, I've been there before, I'm with you, we're tackling this content together. I have high expectations for you, and I expect us to be able to get out of whatever pit we're in right now. And notice like they're saying the we, like we're in the pit right now, like we are attacking this material, and all of them in their own way were able to do that for me. So that idea of empathy just running through, I mean, your philosophy of like everything I do will be out of love for my students. Like there's not much more empathetical statement than that. So I think that was the big takeaway, what have you, what really makes a good teacher. Not that you can like make a list about it. We could even have an episode about like, what makes a good teacher. Love that. But empathy, I think, is something that should not go overlooked. Whether you're making a video, whether you're making a song, whether you're teaching a classroom, or you're just talking to other people, it's just something that should, and it can be practiced too. So that's my big takeaway, I think.
I like that.
What about you?
The excitement for learning really is sticking out with me. Like when you said get excited about long division, never seen any student or any teacher do that. So I think when that excitement is applied to learning and you harness it and you just let the students take off with it, that's where they're going to learn the most. That's when
I agree.
Something's going to stick out to them. And they're gonna go home and say, "Hey, we learned long divisions today."
Mom, guess what? They learned long division. I'm excited.
I can find out how many eggs I can put in 4 egg omelets or something like that. I don't know, but I think that's just such a cool point in education when the kids are excited about it.
To get that intrinsic motivation and let them really go to their full potential.
Yeah, exactly. So powerful.
Next week, we are planning on talking about communication.
Oh boy.
Again, another subject that is so broad, but maybe we'll find out what things stick out to us when we think about what it means to communicate. I think a lot of it will be related to education. A lot of it will be related to content creativity as well. Because everything is communication. I think we talked about that a little bit in the first episode as well. So we might bring up some theories, some different lenses that we can use to view the world or to view how we make stories or how we talk about certain things. There might be some theories or ideas that we discuss that will maybe put things in a new light. So I'm excited about that. That'll be next episode. Until then, thanks for listening.
This has been the 226.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.